Rude was a superstar in the 80s and 90s, known for his amazing physique and his cocky attitude. He called himself Ravishing because he knew he looked good and he wanted everyone to know it. But Rude wasn't as good or as bad as you thought he was. There was a gray area to him that I'm sure you'd love to hear about today. Let's get into it. Born on December 7, 1958, RickRude was a major name in wrestling, known for his time in promotions like the WWF, WCW, and ECW. Rick was a four-time world champion and held some pretty big titles, like the WCW International World Heavyweight Championship 3 times, the WWF Intercontinental Championship once, and the WCW United States Championship. He was a skilled wrestler, no doubt, but he knew how to get under people's skin. He'd insult the fans, flirt with the women, and act like he was better than everyone else. Well, this takes us to his controversy, the Ravishing gimmick. Rude wasn't just in shape, he was ripped. Tight, colorful trunks, flowing hair, and that cocky grin made him stand out in a world of gritty brawlers. And this is what women loved. But as much as the ladies swooned over him, their husbands wanted to beat the crap out of him. Rude's words added fuel to the fire. His signature catchphrase, "cut the music," became very iconic. He'd insult the men in the crowd, calling them fat, out of shape, and say their wives secretly adored him. His words like, "keep the little woman at home next time," stung every time, and very often he'd just pick a girl and kiss her and make very questionable remarks. Fans loved this. They'd laugh their hearts out, but the conservatives really started a protest against him. Parents didn't want their kids to see this seductive beast, and Rude did not want to see those parents either. I mean, come on. Wrestling is not for the faint-hearted. Now, without keeping the ladies aside, let's talk about Rick's feuds, because this guy wasn't just controversial outside the ring. His rivalries were outrageous. Take his feud with Jake the Snake Roberts in 1988. Rude didn't just go after Jake, he went after Jake's wife. He brought a picture of her to the ring, claimed she had a crush on him, and made it personal in a way that most wrestling feuds didn't. Fans were hooked, and it made their matches even more intense. Then there was his feud with the Ultimate Warrior. This one is legendary for its pure drama. Rude didn't plainly trade insults with Warrior. He again went so far as to involve Warrior's wife, making the rivalry feel real and deeply personal. Wrestlers hated him for how he dragged their wives and girlfriends. As much as we'd like to hate him, we really can't, because Rick's life was also a big tragedy. He was known for being tough and entertaining, but like many wrestlers, all those jumps and slams took a toll on his body. He was in a lot of pain. To deal with the pain, Rick started taking strong painkillers. This was a long time ago, and back then, wrestling didn't have good ways to help wrestlers with pain or addiction like they do now. They didn't know as much about how these pills could affect you. Sadly, Rick started needing those pills more and more. He became dependent on them. Even though he was still a great wrestler and a big star, sometimes he missed shows or acted strangely. People knew something was wrong. When he was just 40 years old, Rick died. It was a shock to everyone. Officially, they said it was from natural causes, but everyone knew his problems with addiction played a big part. It's really sad because he was so young and talented. Rick's story is a sad reminder of how dangerous addiction can be, especially in a tough job like wrestling. It also shows how important it is to have good ways to help people deal with pain and addiction. Despite these controversies, Rick Rude remains a beloved figure among many wrestling fans. His in-ring talent, charismatic personality, and ability to generate heat were undeniable. While we remember Rude for his in-ring brilliance, we must also acknowledge the darker side of his story. His life serves as a reminder that even those we admire have flaws and demons to overcome. The legacy must stay alive. If you are a true fan and have stayed till here, you have my respect. Now, to keep the legacy of our favorite wrestler alive, let's have a quick rundown of his epic career. Rick Rude, born Richard Morgan Rude on December 7, 1958, in St. Peter, Minnesota, always had a passion for sports. Before he became a wrestling icon, Rude played football at the University of Minnesota, showcasing his athleticism. This helped him transition into the world of professional wrestling, where he would make his mark. Rude started his wrestling career in 1982, training under Eddie Sharkey and Verna Ganny. His first real taste of the spotlight came when he joined the American Wrestling Association in the early 1980s. While in the AWA, he began developing his persona and honing his skills. He quickly became known for his good looks, solid wrestling ability, and cocky attitude, which would eventually lead to the creation of his famous Ravishing Rick Rude character. His early days in the ring were spent learning and building his reputation in smaller promotions before getting a big break in the larger wrestling world. Rude's big break came when he joined the WWE, then WWF in 1987. That's when he introduced the Ravishing RickRude gimmick, where he would flaunt his good looks and boast about being the most attractive man in wrestling. This persona quickly caught on, making him one of the most hated villains in the industry. Rude's first major feud was with Superfly Jimmy Snuka, which helped him get noticed by fans and promoters alike. Soon after, Rude became involved in a high-profile rivalry with Jake the Snake Roberts. This feud was personal, with Rude mocking Roberts and even insulting his wife. Their storyline became one of the most memorable of the late 80s, leading to a series of intense matches. His crowning achievement came when he won the Intercontinental Championship in 1988, defeating the Ultimate Warrior. This title win cemented Rude as one of the top stars in WWE. His reign was marked by several classic matches against opponents like Warrior and Randy Macho Man Savage, showcasing his ability in the ring and his talent for drawing heat from the audience. Rude's feuds and antics in WWE made him a mainstay on major events like the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania, where his arrogance and showmanship were on full display. He would taunt fans and often give out rude awakening neck breakers to his opponents, a move that became his signature. Despite his success in WWE, things began to change in the early 1990s. In 1990, Rude left WWE due to contract disputes and creative differences. He moved to WCW, where he continued to work at a high level. He feuded with stars like Sting and Ric Flair, and even became part of the Dangerous Alliance, a villainous group managed by Paul E. Dangerously. Tragically, Rick Rude's life and career were cut short. On April 20th, 1999, he passed away at the age of 40, due to heart failure caused by an overdose. His death shocked the wrestling world, especially considering how much he had achieved in such a short amount of time. Despite his early death, Rude's legacy continues to live on. He was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2017, recognizing his impact on the wrestling industry. Rude was one of the most memorable heels of his time, with his larger-than-life persona and in-ring talent. Today, Rick Rude is remembered as a wrestler who knew how to work the crowd, whether as a villain or a champion. His charisma and unique character helped shape the wrestling business, and his influence can still be seen in modern wrestlers who follow in his footsteps. Thanks for sticking around and watching the full video, folks. I hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the life and career of the one and only Ravishing Rick Rude. From his unforgettable charisma and controversial persona to his legendary rivalries, Rude was truly a force in the world of professional wrestling. But beyond the showmanship, Rick Rude was also a complex figure. His story is a reminder of the darker side of the wrestling world, dealing with the toll on the body, pain, and addiction. It's a sad truth, but it's part of his legacy that we can't ignore. He was more than just a cocky heel. He was a talent that left an indelible mark on the sport, inspiring future generations of wrestlers to follow in his footsteps. Now, if you're a true fan of wrestling and Rick Rude, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and let me know your favorite Rick Rude moment or match. Was it his dramatic feuds, his signature rude awakening move, or perhaps his unforgettable attitude that made him one of the most hated and loved wrestlers of his time? Whatever it is, I'd love to know your thoughts. If you like this video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss out on more stories from the world of wrestling and beyond. Your support helps me keep bringing these videos to you. And hey, if you know someone who's a fan of Rick Rude or wrestling in general, share this video with them. Let's keep these legends alive and keep the conversations going. Until next time, remember to keep the memories of these wrestling icons alive. Stay tuned, stay awesome, and I'll catch you in the next video.